My name is Rob Pierce, and I'm a partner with a Denver-based CPA firm that specializes in IT compliance audits. And today I'll be talking about navigating compliance requirements, especially as they relate to data centers. So data centers are in a really unique space since they may have to comply with many different rules and regulations, such as HIPAA, FISMA, SFA 16, PCI, and ISO. Since data centers provide many different types of services to their clients, as well as the clients are in many different types of industries, it's possible that a data center may need to comply with many more rules and regulations than a typical company. So the plan for today is we'll drill into several of the different rules and regulations that a data center may need to comply with. We'll give you a little bit of background on each one of those rules and regulations, and then we'll also talk about some of the physical security requirements associated with those regulations, especially those that require accountability for who is accessing sensitive systems and data within the data center. So as Greg mentioned, there are a myriad of rules, regulations, frameworks, and standards that data centers may need to comply with. These are just a few of them here. There are probably many more, and it's really just dependent on the type of clients that a particular data center provides services to. So the first regulation or rule that we'd like to talk about is HIPAA, and HIPAA stands for the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act of 1996. And there are really two main rules that are covered by HIPAA. The first is the privacy rule, and the privacy rule is the part of HIPAA that most people are probably familiar with, and that regulates the use and disclosure of protected health information, which is also known as PHI. So many of you, or a few of you, may have filled out a form in the past that authorizes another individual other than yourself to view your health information. And the privacy rule, one of the main tenets of the privacy rule is that an individual must explicitly authorize another individual to view their health information. The rule that most relates to a data center, though, is the security rule. And the security rule covers electronic protected health information, which is also known as EPHI. And there are three types of safeguards that are covered by the security rule. The first are administrative safeguards, and these are the safeguards that relate to the policies and procedures, the overarching policies and procedures for how a particular entity handles EPHI, who are their privacy officer, and also a few other kind of high-level administrative requirements. The physical safeguards, those are the ones that I'll be drilling into a little bit more on the next slide. Those are the safeguards that relate to controlling physical access to EPHI. And then you also have technical safeguards, and those are more related to restricting logical access to EPHI. And those might include encrypting data and other technical requirements. So why would a data center need to be compliant with HIPAA? Well, it's pretty straightforward. If you have a client that's a covered entity under HIPAA, or a business associate of a covered entity, they may require you to be compliant with HIPAA. If you house EPHI for any of your clients, you may also need to be compliant with HIPAA. So what are some of the physical security requirements that are outlined within HIPAA? The first is that you have physical access control mechanisms in place. So you restrict access, you restrict physical access to EPHI, wherever that EPHI resides. Whether it's in a particular rack, you need to restrict access at the rack level. If the whole data center contains EPHI, then you need to restrict physical access there at the data center entry points. Another requirement is that the entity maintains a record of personnel who are authorized to access the facilities in co-location areas. So you need to be able to generate a report that shows who has access to the EPHI, wherever that resides. You also need to control or monitor physical access to the areas where EPHI resides so you can detect and respond to incidents. So you need to have you need to be able to generate an activity report showing who accessed the EPHI and when they accessed it. This is particularly useful in the case, if a breach were to occur, you're able to go back and perform forensics to determine, how the breach occurred, who caused the breach, and perform other forensics associated with the breach. So what are some of the risks of non-compliance with HIPAA? Well, you could simply lose the business of that covered entity or business associate of a covered entity. They may choose to house their EPHI at a data center that is HIPAA compliant. There's also probably one of the greatest risks is a risk of breach and associated fines with that breach. So if you're not protecting data following the rules that are outlined by the security rule and a breach occurs, you could be looking at some pretty hefty fines. And when I conclude my presentation, I'll talk about a few case studies and some of the fines associated with breaches that have occurred. You also have a risk of an Office of Civil Rights or OCR audit. And OCR is kind of the governing arm of Health and Human Services, and Health and Human Services is who has put out the HIPAA regulation. And so it's possible if you had a breach that OCR would come in and perform an audit and try to determine your level of compliance with some of the other regulations associated with HIPAA. And if they find that you, for instance, didn't have a HIPAA security officer identified, you haven't performed a risk assessment, you could be looking at even greater fines. So the next rule that I'd like to talk about is the FISMA. It's called FISMA, and FISMA stands for the Federal Information Security Management Act of 2002. So FISMA is really just a framework for managing information security. Why would a data center need to be compliant with FISMA? Well, if you have any clients that are federal agencies or contractors to federal agencies, they may require that you're compliant with FISMA if you're going to house their data. Some of the physical security requirements associated with FISMA are that you control entry to the facility, so similar to HIPAA, and I think you'll see some common themes across all these physical security requirements. You control entry to the facility containing the information, wherever that is. You can even have guards in place to monitor who is accessing that information. You enforce physical access authorizations for all access points. So there are no doors that aren't controlled or racks that aren't controlled. You have a physical security mechanism on each one of those entry points. That you verify access authorizations before granting access to the facility. So this really needs to be real time. So if you are controlling physical access remotely for a number of facilities and an employee terminates, for example, you need to be able to prevent that terminated employee from accessing any of the physical access points that they had access to. So you need to control authorizations for all physical access points and restrict access to authorized individuals only. You also need to periodically review and approve the access list, so everyone that has physical access to the data center, rack, or wherever the federal data is, and authorization credentials. So you need to perform periodic entitlement reviews to ensure that access is appropriate over time. Some other requirements associated with FISMA are that you're able to produce audit records. So similar to HIPAA, you need to be able to create reports that demonstrates who accessed at a particular time, which entry point they accessed through, where the event occurred, the source of the event, whether the event was successful or not, was access rejected, or were they able to access the facility or rack, and also the identity of any user or subject associated with the event. And the system or physical access control system needs to have timestamps that are generated that include both the date and the time. So again, so you can kind of go back and perform forensics for who accessed when. So what are some of the risks associated with non-compliance for FISMA? You may not be able to become FISMA or FedRAMP certified. So FedRAMP is an additional, it's kind of a bolt-on to FISMA that's more related to cloud services. And it's possible if you can't demonstrate FSMA compliance or FedRAMP compliance that you may not be certified, and you may lose potential business from federal agencies and contractors or from federal agencies. Next framework that I'd like to talk about, or standard, is called ISO. ISO stands for Information Security. Well, it's Information Security Standards, which are published by the International Organization for Standardization and the International Electrotechnical Commission, and those were published in 2005. So why might a data center choose to be ISO certified? I think ISO is heavily used in Europe, and so if a data center is located outside of the United States or they do business with European countries, those countries may require an ISO certification. If the data center is located within Europe, it's likely that they may go after an ISO certification. Some of the physical security requirements associated with ISO, again, you'll notice a lot of similarities, that there are authentication mechanisms in place, be it a key card, a PIN, that are proportionate to the risks and the value of the assets that you're protecting. So it's kind of a risk-based approach, and that you need to restrict access to the most sensitive data in a way that's commensurate with the sensitivity of the data that you're trying to protect. You also need to record the date and time of all entries and exits. You can also have video recordings of activities in the entry and exit area as appropriate. Again, it's risk-based, so depending on the sensitivity of the data that you're protecting, you may add additional controls such as video monitoring. Some additional physical security requirements within ISO are that authorized personnel must wear visible identification and report persons without such identification. So challenging people if you don't see a badge or a badge with a picture on it that doesn't correspond to the person that you're seeing. And that you have appropriate authorization and monitoring procedures for third-party personnel. So if you have contractors or visitors that are entering into the data center or accessing a particular rack, you need to have a process in place for how to handle those visitors and contractors. Whether they're escorted or monitored via video, there needs to be some process in place. And also that you regularly review and, when indicated, revoke access rights. So again, it's kind of that idea of real-time being able to revoke access rights for a particular individual and have that prevent that individual from accessing any of the spaces that you're trying to protect. What are some of the risks of non-compliance? Well, you could lose those clients who have to comply with ISO requirements. They'll just look elsewhere. They'll find a data center that is ISO certified and host their systems there. The next standard that I'd like to talk about is the Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard, which is also known as PCI DSS. PCI was created by credit card companies to protect cardholder data. And a data center might choose to be PCI certified if they have credit card merchants or payment service providers as their clients. And also their clients may require that a data center is PCI certified. Some of the physical security requirements associated with PCI are that you use appropriate facility entry controls to limit and monitor physical access to systems in the cardholder data environment. So if your whole data center houses credit card merchants, then you need to implement physical security controls at the data center level. If you have a particular rack that houses a PCI merchant, then you would need to implement physical security controls at the rack level and to try to protect that cardholder data. You also need, again, similar to the other requirements, you also need to have a visitor process in place. So you ensure all visitors are authorized before entering areas where cardholder data is processed or maintained, and that those visitors are given some type of physical token that expires at the end of the visit, and that visitor token identifies the visitor as a non-employee. Visitors also need to surrender those tokens before they leave the facility or when the token expires. Again, similar to the other requirements, PCI also requires that there's an audit trail so you can reconstruct access events. So again, you need to be able to determine who accessed when, the date and time, and also, if people are trying to access and they're not authorized, you need to monitor for invalid access attempts as well. So a periodic review process is a great way to monitor access over time. If your physical control system is able to generate a report periodically, and that report can be monitored to ensure that only authorized individuals have been accessing the rack or data center containing the PCI data. What are some of the risks of non-compliance? Again, loss of PCI clients, loss of those credit card merchants that you're trying to do business with. There are also fines associated with breaches. I think we've all probably seen some of the recent headlines related to the high-profile breaches with Target, Apple. I think one of the key takeaways from those high-profile breaches is that nobody's safe, and even some of the largest companies in the world have had breaches, and so it's important to do your best to protect the PCI data. And one of the ways of doing that is by restricting physical access. The next type of framework that I'd like to talk about, or audits that I'd like to talk about, are service organization control audits. And these are also known as SOC audits. And some of you may be familiar with the old acronym, which was SAS 70 in the past. And SAS 70 has been replaced now with SSAE 16. And that's also known as a SOC 1 report. And so these reports are a little bit different because there aren't a set of prescribed requirements associated with a report. The reports are really tailored to the services that a particular service organization, such as a data center, provides to their clients. So depending on the services that you provide, if physical security is one of those services, then you may choose to outline some of your physical security controls and also demonstrate that your physical security controls are operating effectively over time to your clients. So SOC 1 report is intended to be related to, if your client has a system that's hosted within your data center, and that system is related to that client's internal controls over financial reporting. So if it's a financially relevant system, then they may require a data center to have a SOC 1 report. And so those type of systems would be, to provide some examples, might be an ERP system, a payroll system, or some other type of accounts payable system. All those would be relevant, obviously, to the financials of your client, and so that client may demand that you have a SOC 1 or SSAE 16 report. So all these reports are all performed under AICPA guidance, so American Institute of CPA guidance. And what I think the AICPA realized recently is that the SOC 1 report really wasn't a one-size-fits-all report as it was used in the past under the SAS 70 attestation requirements. So the AICPA came out with a SOC 2 and SOC 3 report just to confuse things a little more. And the SOC 2 and SOC 3 reports are based on trust services principles. So the trust services principles you can see are security, availability, processing integrity, confidentiality, or privacy. So again, depending on the services you're providing to your clients, you may elect to demonstrate your compliance with any of these trust service principles. So many data centers elect to go with security and availability. If you were housing data that was relevant to HIPAA, you might elect to choose privacy as well. So it's really intended to, for those data centers, as an example, that aren't hosting data that's relevant to their clients' financials, they can demonstrate compliance in these other areas. So why might a data center choose to obtain a SOC report? Again, if you're hosting a general ledger ERP system, something that's financially relevant to your clients, they may demand the SOC 1 report. Some of your client's auditors may also require that your client gets a SOC report from a data center, as an example. And again, the reports really just demonstrate your compliance, either with demonstrate your compliance for the services that you're providing to your customers or clients. So some of the physical security requirements, if physical security was one of the services you were providing to your clients, you may elect to include some of these different types of controls within your report. Again, you restrict access to authorized individuals only. You maintain a log of individuals who accessed at a particular date and time. You periodically assess whether that access is appropriate, so those periodic entitlement reviews that help ensure that access is appropriate over time. And that you might also include that you have video cameras in place to record access events. What are some risks of non-compliance? Well, you could lose business, again, similar theme to the others. You could lose, your publicly traded clients. They may go elsewhere to find a company that does have a SOC report in place. You may also have a SOC report with a qualified opinion. So what that means is it's kind of auditor language for a dirty opinion. That's what you don't want. You want a clean opinion. But in the instance of physical security, if you didn't have a physical access control in place for your data center and you were providing physical security to your data center clients, then your report may be qualified since you don't even have an access control mechanism for your data center. Now I'll talk about a few breach case studies. The first breach case study occurred with Silicon Valley Eye Care, optometry and contact lenses. And this happened in April of 2010. And what happened was a couple burglars broke into an area that contained the server. And the server was unencrypted. And it had a database with names, social security numbers, dates of birth, and also some medical and health information for 40,000 patients. So the burglars broke in through the window, and security cameras actually recorded this event, confiscated the server, and pushed the server back out the window, all within 50 seconds. So hopefully most of your data centers don't have windows to the outside, but this just highlights that a server could easily be stolen in the absence of access control. And if that server happens to contain protected data, then you may, again, be susceptible to fines for a breach. Next case study occurred with Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Tennessee, and this occurred in March of 2012. And what happened was 57 hard drives that contained electronic protected health information were stolen. And so OCR came in, performed their audit, and found that Blue Cross Blue Shield of Tennessee had to pay $1.5 million to HHS and also enter into a corrective action plan to settle their alleged violations. So real dollars, and the fines can be pretty hefty in the event of a breach. Last breach case study I'd like to talk about occurred with the Department of Veterans Affairs, and that occurred in May of 2006. And again, unencrypted database, names, social security numbers, dates of birth, disability ratings for 26.5 million veterans and active duty military personnel and spouses. Database was stolen, was on a laptop and an external hard drive. Then they were stolen in a burglary from a Virginia analyst Maryland home. And so again, it wasn't a data center, but it does highlight the vulnerability that a data center has when they house electronic protected health information. So with that, that concludes my portion of the presentation. I'd like to pass it over to Randy now to discuss the E-Line solution by DRAC and how E-Line meets some of the physical security requirements that I've outlined in my presentation.
Thank you, Rob. I will share with you today a mechatronic security system developed by DRAC that is a tool used by security professionals today to ensure the protection of their most critical assets and comply with various industry compliance regulations. E-Line by DRAC is DRAC's mechatronic security system designed to give a high level of security at the rack or enclosure for indoor and outdoor applications. E-Line by DRAC controls access to individual racks and enclosures, monitors when individuals have access, and creates a continuous 24/7 audit trail. It is based on RFID transponder technology, allowing all access to be identified and authorized. It consists of 3 product groups plus the E-Line by DRAC security management software called the Administration Suite software. E-Line by DRAC is capable of controlling access to a broad range of applications, including data centers, individual racks, kiosk machines, enclosures in public areas, and cabinets that house sensitive material. I will now re-examine the physical security requirements within the compliance regulations that Rob just discussed and elaborate on how E-Line by DRAC satisfies these requirements. As mentioned earlier in the presentation, in order to comply with HIPAA's physical security requirements, an organization must have safeguards in place to control access to sensitive data, meaning physically securing the cabinet or enclosure in real time. Let's examine how E-Line by DRAC meets this HIPAA requirement. A component of the E-Line by DRAC system is the mechatronic locks to ensure physical access control mechanisms are in place. DRAC offers a variety of mechatronic locks for indoor applications, including our MLR series locks, which is mechatronic latch for racks, which is shown here in the left image, and our MLU, which is our mechatronic latch for universal applications, shown here in the right image of the slide. With E-Line by DRAC mechatronic locks, an organization can demonstrate to a HIPAA auditor they have the necessary physical safeguards in place to control physical access. Let's examine now how E-Line by DRAC meets the second HIPAA requirement. Within the E-Line by DRAC Administration Suite software, user records can be added that includes fields to enter personal information for authorized users that are assigned an RFID media card. An unlimited number of users can be added. Information that can be inputted includes job title, department, phone number, address information, and users can be removed instantly if an employee has been terminated. You can assign media users to authorized users, and you can group the users by media card, access levels, department, and so forth. Here on the screen you see an example shot here of the personal record field where the authorized users would be inputted. Within the E-Line by DRAC Administration Suite software, an organization keeps a personal record of all authorized users to the facility and co-location areas. Now let's see how E-Line by DRAC fulfills this third HIPAA requirement listed here. Administration Suite software provides a security administrator an overview with information about all E-Line by DRAC devices in centralized and decentralized locations. The software graphically displays the status of all devices in real time. For example, status field here for the devices, whether the handle is open or closed, as you can see by swing handle open column here. Door contact status field will show whether the door is open or closed, in case a sabotage event occurs and somebody was able to bust the door open without opening the swing handle itself. Show whether the device is active or inactive, device alarm notification field, and the bottom of the screen here in the status overview screen is a field which shows all system and alarm notice messages. Administration Suite software provides an extensive range of alarm and system notifications. Each device or group of devices can be pre-programmed with specific alarm monitoring criteria. The software can automatically forward alarm and or system messages to any email address specified in the system. As you see here is an example of sabotage events and door alarm messages that are populating in the system screen here below. Specific type of alarms that can be shown are whether the door is open, whether the handle is left open on the swing handle itself. We also have the ability to show whether the temperature setting within the software and devices has exceeded the high limit or the low limit. also show unauthorized access attempts, even authorized access attempts, and all sabotage events. Within the E-Line by DRAC Administration Suite software, an organization is able to monitor the status of all devices and be alerted of all alarm and system notifications in real time. So as you can see, E-Line by DRAC satisfies all of the HIPAA physical security requirements. Similar to HIPAA's physical access control mechanism requirements, E-Line by DRAC physical locking mechanisms meet the FISMA physical access criteria listed here. FISMA requires organizations to verify individual access authorizations before granting access to the facility. Let's examine now how E-Line by DRAC meets this second FISMA requirement. Within the Administration Suite software is a security matrix called the locking plan that links together authorized users to specific devices and device groups and time profiles. It provides an overview of authorized user access to individual devices, device groups during a predetermined time profile, and several different time profiles can be defined during which user access is allowed or completely blocked. Here's an example of a group of devices here in the left column, and then on top in the vertical here are the authorized users and media cards, and then the color field here is where you can assign the different time profiles, a visual indicator. In this case, the green field is a 24/7 access time profile, and then the red and blue time profiles can be certain time frames throughout the day in which those users only have access to those specified devices. As shown in the previous slide, a security matrix features a critical component of the Administration Suite software to verify individual access authorizations are in place before granting access to the facility or enclosure. Let me now show you within the Administration Suite software the access list and authorization credentials. As mentioned earlier, personal user records can be added into the Administration Suite software to create an authorized user access list. In addition, a Microsoft Active Directory service is available within the Administration Suite software. Users can be imported from Active Directory into the administration software, and the software offers extensive options to import or sync data from Active Directory. It is possible to control access to authorizations only from the Active Directory. RFID cards, which we refer to as media in this presentation, are assigned to users listed in the Administration Suite software database. Different device criteria for each media can be assigned to each user. Examples includes the status of the media can be either unissued, issued, returned, defective, or lost, as just a few examples. Here on the screen you can see a list of owners or the users, and then the media card type that's assigned to them with each media card unique identification number assigned to them. If a card is lost, stolen, or an employee is let go, the status of the media card can be changed in a matter of seconds to eliminate access to E-Line by DRAC devices. Access lists can be imported again from Microsoft Active Directory via CSV files or by adding personal records right into the Administration Suite software. Authorization credentials are controlled by the security matrix and the media assigned to authorized users. Let's move on and examine the audit trail functionality in the Administration Suite software. All actions are logged as log events in the Administration Suite software database, and timestamps are assigned to each event. A security administrator has the ability to search and filter criteria such as devices, media, users, log events, and/or time periods. Also, there's the export and print functionality, which is available within the Administration Suite software, where all events can be exported to an Excel or PDF file, or the data that is displayed can be printed or saved to various file formats, including PDF, HTML, Excel, and CSV. And here's an example here of a log event here showing an event number, description of the event number, particular device name, media card type, and the specific user, and then there's the timestamps. Within the Administration Suite software, all security events are logged, time-stamped, and stored in the Administration Suite server database 24/7. Similar to FSMA, these two ISO criteria checked off here are fulfilled with the Administration Suite software by timestamp shown in the log events database, the detailed security matrix I just previously discussed, which we refer to as the locking plan, and change user authorization in the media setup. Let's now review additional E-Line by DRAC authentication mechanisms for the third criteria listed here. As part of the E-Line by DRAC Mechatronic Lock offering, we offer the Mechatronic Lock for racks with integrated keypad, as shown in the left image on the slide. The keypad allows additional security where the Mechatronic swing handle can be opened by both a keypad code and a valid RFID card. An additional elevated security level can be utilized by the use of the 4i principle. The Mechatronic swing handle can be opened when two users provide appropriate authorization to access the enclosure within a specified time period. There's a device data screenshot here showing the 4i principle box that can be checked for this particular device. The physical security requirement of authentication mechanisms using a key card and a PIN code proportionate to the identified racks and the value of the assets protected can be met by deploying the E-Line by DRAC Mechatronic locks with the keypad, swing handles, and utilization of the 4i principle. Let's now examine the fourth criteria listed here under ISO. In the Administration Suite software, time profiles can be created. Several different time profiles can be defined during which access is allowed or completely blocked. You can set up 3 time windows per time profile, valid 24 hours every weekday and for every configured special day. You can create special time profile configurations with a special day that would be valid every day but not for a particular date range. Here's an example of that, some time profiles here. There's 3 of them set up here. And then the software testing profile example here shows the 2 red blocks. Those are the time profiles that are set up, and then users would be assigned to that specified time profile back in the security matrix or the locking plan. The 4 criteria listed here under ISO are fulfilled within the Administration Suite software by the timestamps that are shown in the log events database, the detailed security matrix, deploying E-Line by DRAC, MLR KP Mechatronic swing handles, and utilization of the 4i principle, and also by the time profiles. As previously discussed throughout this presentation, the first PCI DSS criteria listed here is met with the E-Line by DRAC physical locks and the Administration Suite software. I would like to share with you another functionality built into the Administration Suite software that fulfills the second PCI DSS requirement listed here. A task administration function is available in the Administration Suite software. Here a security administrator has the ability to create 5 different task programming jobs, including the task planned access. Here, the task planned access allows authorization for specific media or RFID cards for specific devices for a configured time period. The authorization would then expire after that configured time period. The task planned access programming job function fulfills the second PCI DSS criteria. Let's examine how the Administration Suite software satisfies the third criteria under PCI DSS. With the task administration function, a security administrator can run reports that can be automatically generated and emailed in Excel and PDF formats. Various programming jobs can automatically be set for remote opening of the devices, setting opening periods, blocking periods, and various task planned access jobs. Also, customizable tasks specific to end user needs can be set. I showed earlier how all actions are logged as log events in Administration Suite software database, and timestamps are assigned to each event. A security administrator has the ability to search and filter criteria such as by devices, media, users, log events, and time periods. Here's an example of a log event report that can be exported from the Administration Suite software. The third criteria checked off here is fulfilled. Within the Administration Suite software, all actions are logged as log events in the Admin Suite database. Again, timestamps are assigned to each event, and the ability to search and filter criteria such as devices, media, user, log events, and or various time periods. Under SOC 1, 2, and 3, the first three criteria is checked off here is fulfilled by, again, the detailed security matrix and the log data file mounted as part of the audit trail of reporting capabilities. Let's examine some additional alarm and device setting functionality within the E-Line by DRAC system. An extensive range of alarm and device settings is available for the E-Line by DRAC locking mechanisms, which can be configured per individual device or group of devices. I would like to point out an available slave relay mode function here, as I'm circling here on the screen. Here, this function can be utilized to trigger video cameras, sirens, lights, or other third-party accessories. The camera can be wired into a third-party management system such as Lenel to record the events, but the slave relay option on our devices can be used to trigger the camera on or off. It uses a normally closed or normally open relay contact terminal, and some of the relay trigger mode options are relay on at swing handle open and a key is pressed on the handle for opening period or remote opening commands. The relay can be activated when the swing handle is open. The relay can be activated when a valid key card is shown, and also a relay activated by an alarm. The fourth and final criteria under SOC 1, 2, and 3 is fulfilled by utilizing the slave relay mode function option to trigger video cameras that are connected to third-party management systems to record and store the access events. I'd like to share with you some additional features included in the E-Line by DRAC mechatronic security system. Global administration capability, where you can monitor several different facilities in different time zones. We have an integrated web client, which makes it possible for any number of users to connect remotely to the E-Line by DRAC Administration Suite server via a web browser using a tablet or a smartphone. We have an SNMP agent service available, which allows for linking and monitoring devices through the Admin Suite software via SNMP traps. The E-Line system can be monitored by SNMP-capable third-party monitoring software without having to engage the Administration Suite software user interface. Multiple RFID card formats are available, including 125 kilohertz and 13.56 megahertz transponder card formats. We also can accommodate customer-specific transponder card formats. The Administration Suite software runs on Windows 2000, Windows XP, Windows 7, Windows Server 2005, 2008, 2012. All the log data is stored to a Microsoft SQL Server database, whether it's a full SQL Server database or SQL Express 2005. All the data communication between the hardware, server, Administration Suite software, client software is encrypted. And the E-Line by DRAC physical locks fit most cabinet styles and manufacturers, whether using the industry standard C cutout, or we can provide adapters available on request for non-traditional cutouts. DRAC is continuously improving and further developing our software, releasing new products, and providing technical support installation. DRAC develops custom access control solutions that meet our customers' individual physical security requirements. DRAC has been active in the field for over a decade and will continue to work hard to ensure its customers to have the cutting-edge mechatronic access control systems available to them. I would like to emphasize the importance of companies today protecting data and critical assets as a critical component of the risk management program. The organization and implementation of data protection measures often neglect physical access protection. Physical security breaches can be prevented through the implementation of electronic access control systems, comprehensive monitoring, and auditing. The cost of the security breach can be enormous, even for small companies. Every company has specific requirements for the security of their systems, and DREC can help meet those requirements. Whether it is a single application or a comprehensive overhaul, DREC has an E-Line by DREC solution fit any company's needs. This concludes the presentation portion of the webinar, and we are now available to answer any questions.
Thanks, Randy. We got a lot of good questions during the webinar. I'll try to focus on ones that we received multiple of or a couple different similar versions of the question. My first one is for Rob. Basically, what are some additional benefits of securing sensitive data at the rack level as opposed to at the data center or building level?
Well, that's a good question. I think it really depends on where your sensitive data is housed, or where your protected data is housed. So one of the benefits of controlling access at the rack level is if your sensitive data is housed within one particular rack, then you can control that rack, segregate it from the rest of your network, and then provide all the physical security controls that are required by a particular rule or regulation, whether it's PCI or HIPAA. Then you only have to worry about controlling that one rack, as opposed to the entire data center. Perhaps some of the data that you're housing in the rest of the data center doesn't need to be protected in the same way that your PCI data does. So I'd say, there'd be probably cost savings associated with protecting it at the rack level, so you don't need to implement the highest standard of physical security controls across your entire data center.
Thanks. Randy, this is a question we got a few times. How do the E-Line by DREC devices operate during a power network failure?
Good question. Well, the E-Line mechatronic latching devices have a built-in battery port, so the MLR swing handle can be accessed with an authorized media card and with an E-Line by DREC battery pack that's plugged into the bottom of the handle. All the E-Line swing handle readers have an integrated cycle memory, which works on a first-in, first-out principle and a storage capacity of 500 events. So during a power failure or network failure, as soon as that connection with the server is reestablished, all those events that took place during that time that are stored on the reader are automatically sent back to the server, so you still have a continuous 24/7 audit trail.
Okay, thanks. I have a two-part question here from Mike. Rob, why don't you take the first part? Do most auditors have different formatting requirements for reports submitted to them, or are there some standards out there that many companies use?
Well, one thing to remember is that not all auditors are created equal. And so, one auditor may have a different reporting requirement than a different auditor. For me personally, some of the most important things would be, can I manipulate the data? So, is the data in a format where I can then perform data analysis on the data to try to figure out whether or not there were, unauthorized access attempts by a particular individual? So basically, having the ability to slice and dice that data and that activity report, it would be valuable to me. Now, in the case of an entitlement review, a report like a PDF report might be more valuable because, obviously it's kind of frozen at a point in time. And, what an individual might do is periodically receive that PDF report, review those individuals that access the data center, and then sign off on that PDF report. So I guess the answer is it depends, but I think the ability to have some different options is nice.
And the second part of this question is, what kind of audit reporting capability does the E-Line system and software have, and are the reports configurable?
Yeah, so with an administration suite software, we'd kind of showed you through the presentation there, we have the log data event file, which the reports can be exported or printed and saved to different file formats. There's the task report function capability in the software. And also, anytime there's changes made to users and time profiles, those are all recorded under a change log. So that's an additional reporting function that can be used to send to auditors or any type of internal type compliance teams within the organization, and all these reports can be configurable.
Great. Kind of a similar type question. Rob, why don't you handle this, at least the first part. Do auditors normally accept automatic and recurring reports from their customers, or are they on a as-requested basis?
Well, that's an interesting question. I think one of the principles of auditing is to ensure you kind of have a chain of custody for any audit evidence that you obtain. And so, similar to a detective performing forensics, if a report was generated out of a system and the report was in an Excel format, and that was generated and then sent via email to an auditor, the individual that generated that report could very easily just delete a couple rows within that Excel report, and then hide from the auditor who accessed at the particular date and time. So I think, the ability to automate that report and then, potentially send it to the auditor without even passing through the hands of the particular individual at the company might be pretty valuable to me because you know that it came out of the system. You have pretty good comfort that it hasn't been modified before it was sent to you. And so you can most likely rely on that report and the accuracy of the report. So I think that feature would be particularly interesting for me as an auditor.
Thanks. Randy, a question about the swing handles themselves. Is there a key override feature available with them?
No, we do not have a key override feature built into the MLR swing handles. What we have to access the handles during a Pally failure, a network failure, and to all these show continuous 24/7 audit trail traceability, you would use a battery pack and an authorized media card to gain access to the handle during that time frame there. So with the key override, now you have a hole in the audit trail. And with the system we've designed with the battery pack and authorized card, you can ensure you have the continuous audit trail reporting capabilities, and all that's still stored in the log data event file.
Thanks. A question that we've gotten a few times here, Randy, this would be for you. Can the E-Line system be integrated with the existing facility card management system for ease of either importing new users or terminating old users, or just for when system changes or upgrades occur?
Yes. That was using existing media card, you said?
Yeah. So I think it's a question we've gotten a few times here now about can the system be integrated into existing management systems? Yes,
through the SNMP service functionality we have built in the Administration Suite software, and if that third-party system has SNMP capabilities, then yes, the two systems can communicate together.
Okay, great. Let's see, get a few more before time runs out here. Randy, does password protection exist with the Administration Suite software, and is there user account management in the software itself, or does that have to be managed externally?
Yes, there is password protection that exists in the software, and individual user profiles can be created with separate login and password with individual access rights. So you can have a main security administrator that has a different set of login credentials that they have both read and write access, and then other users can have, again, separate password and login where they may be restricted on what they can do with the system itself. Maybe, for example, they have some write access rights where they can reset device alarms, but most of their ability for the login is read access, where they can just be monitoring the system. They can't be going in there and removing users or altering time profiles or even deleting events of the log data file.
Okay, kind of a question that might tag along to the end of that. Are all the changes to the user access in such as time profile settings or access settings, are those stored in the administration suite, or is that something that's just kind of forgotten?
All those, anytime there's a user access changes, new users added, time profile settings change and everything, yes, all that is stored in what we call the change log report in Administration Suite software. So everything's recorded, and that's an additional feature that can be used as part of the audit trail reporting process in addition to all the log event data file.
Okay. Probably only have time for one more quick question. If we didn't get to your specific question during this webinar, we'll be sure to reach out to you shortly after and answer it. But this last one is for you, Randy. Are the alarm settings general or individual for each E-line by DRAC device?
Well, alarm settings can be made for each individual swing handle reader, and they also can be configured by selecting a group of swing handles and readers. So if you have for a large data center or co-location site with 500 or more handles, for example, it's easier to, if you have the devices grouped in sections, you can just select the group of those devices and then assign the same type of alarm settings for them. And then if you just have smaller sites or standalone rack locations, you can just alter the settings for just those individual devices themselves.
Great. Well, I think that's all the time we have for questions. Again, if we haven't gotten to your specific question, we'll be sure to reach out to you, either Rob or Randy, and we'll contact you with an answer to your specific question. I'd like to thank both Rob and Randy for joining us and sharing these presentations. Have a good day, everyone.
Thanks.